Imagine that above your valley, you have lots of helicopters. And within each helicopter is a family looking down on all these other valleys. Your valley has, these people heading off in different directions. But there are other valleys nearby. These are your competitor schools. And they whiz between these different valleys, looking down from above. And what they are trying to do is figure out which school, which group of people in each valley best represents their vision for what they want for their children, their vision of what is the best education that they can provide for their children through independent education. Welcome to the Independent School Podcast. Thinking and acting strategically is the key to both securing the future of your school and helping to build a more equal and just world. My name's Juliette Corbett. I'm a consultant, speaker and facilitator specialising in helping independent schools. In this podcast, I translate tried and tested strategy and fundraising techniques into a language that works for schools. So if you're a senior leader in a private school and you want your daily work to feel less exhausting and more strategic, and if you want once more to feel the joy of making the world a better place through education, then you're in the right place. Welcome, and let's get started on this week's episode. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode where we're actually going to be taking strategy back to its core. We're going to be talking about vision and why it's important to have a sense of where you're taking your school. But we're going to be doing this from a completely different perspective. We're going to be doing it from the perspective of either you or someone that you need to persuade really doesn't agree with strategy, doesn't see its point, thinks that it's a load of jargon, thinks that any conversation which includes the word vision or mission statement or values is a waste of time. If either you have those preconceptions about strategy or you're working with others who do and you want to persuade them around to your point of view, that strategy is useful and a lot more than just jargon, then this is the episode for you. We are going to be talking about vision from the point of view of which mountain do you want your school to climb. Really quickly, before we dive into the detail, I want to make sure that you make the most of the time you invest listening to this podcast. And the best way to do that is to make sure you grab a copy of my free ebook, The Strategic Independent School Leader. It outlines how to answer the 6 essential questions that will clarify your school strategy and secure its future. In the world of business, strategy can be full of jargon, but it doesn't have to be that way. This is a jargon-free tool tailor-made to help private school leaders think and act more strategically. Download your free copy today at www.consultjuliette.co.uk/ebook. Okay, so vision and using a little bit of a story to tell your audience or to persuade you that vision and strategy really matters. We're going to take a completely different approach this time. Normally we take a much more analytical approach in this podcast. I'll tell you about some tools or some techniques that are quite useful, some steps that you can take. We're going to throw all of that out because if you're working with people who don't really see the point of strategy, you need to find a way to tell a story to make them visualise why strategy matters. And that's what we're diving into this week. So what I want you to do is imagine that you are in a valley full of mountaintops around you. And with you as the school leader, along with other leaders, so the heads, the governors, and with you are all of your staff and everybody else in your school community who can make a decision that has an impact. So that'll be your alumni leaders, your year reps from your alumni community, anyone who's a regional rep for your boarding parents or your alumni anywhere around the world, anyone who is perhaps making a decision that can influence something about your school and the way that your school community works, and certainly all of your staff. So imagine that you're standing in this valley, you have all of these mountaintops around you, And you have probably about 150 to 200 people with you, because those are your decision makers. Those are the people that actually, their actions on a day-to-day basis create your school community and have the outcome of the education that you provide for your young people. So you are in this valley, and I want you to imagine that you don't have a strategy, you don't have a vision, you don't have a mission statement, you don't have a value statement, you don't have anything at all. Because historically, maybe your school hasn't taken that route. Maybe you've had leaders historically who haven't really agreed with that approach. Maybe they've thought that strategy is for businesses and we're a community. We're a learning and teaching community. We don't do strategy. There are many schools that I work with who have had that as a starting point. So you are amongst all of these people, and these people are milling around, but they're not just milling around, wandering around the valley. Some of them are heading towards different mountaintops already. Without a strategy, without a vision, all of your people are heading off in different directions. Some of them might be going striding up one particular mountain. Others might be meandering a bit round in circles, but they're all moving in different directions. And each of those mountains around you represents a different vision that your school could pursue for the future. So, for example, maybe you have a small renegade group of people who are absolutely determinedly trying to get to the mountain to the left of you. And that mountain represents everything to do with sport. They are not just obsessed with sport, because that belittles their point of view, but they believe truly that through physical activity, team sport is the way to unlock young people's potential, is the way to harness new parents' interest in the school, is the way to promote the school. So yes, they are likely sports fans themselves, but it's not just that. They actually believe that the sporting heritage and current reputation of your school is the single most important way that your school can stand out, and that it needs to really invest both emotionally and financially in this vision of sport being the way that you deliver that education, that all-rounded holistic confidence and education and team building and leadership skills that you want to get into your young people. So you have this little group heading up this mountain to your left. You have another group off to your right that truly believe that it's all about children achieving their academic potential. So they are all about focusing on academic results, focusing on the extension of bright pupils, learning into new and exciting new realms above and beyond the level that they're currently at. They really believe, they may also believe that actually it's about bringing up everybody to a certain standard. So it's not about leaving people behind academically, it's about the learning support they need, but it's all very academically focused. And they are heading off that mountaintop to your right. And then there are other groups that are all just sort of heading randomly up a mountain that's a little bit to do with community partnerships, or another one that's to do with global partnerships, kind of global links and international schools. Each of these mountaintops around you will represent a different point of view that all of these 200-ish people around you have. Now, none of these points of view about the vision, the future vision for your school, is right or wrong. All of them have potential. But as a school leader, you are standing, along with your other leaders, the governors, the head, etc., standing at the valley, watching your people head off in all different directions. And they're calling out to each other saying, come and join us. Sport's the best thing. And the other group calling out saying, it's all about community partnerships. That's the way that we forge a way forward in a socially responsible way. Someone else is calling out that it's all about environmental sustainability, and that's what we have to be focusing on. They're all heading up different mountains. This is what happens when any group of people, but in our case, a school, doesn't have a shared vision, doesn't have a shared strategic goal, a kind of set of values, of mission, of direction that they share. They all head off in different directions. Now, what's really interesting is when you then think about this analogy further and imagine that above your valley, you have lots of helicopters. And within each helicopter is a family looking down on all these other valleys. Your valley has these people heading off in different directions. But there are other valleys nearby. These are your competitor schools, and they whiz between these different valleys, looking down from above. And what they are trying to do is figure out which school, which group of people in each valley best represents their vision for what they want for their children, their vision of what is the best education that they can provide for their children through independent education. And when they look down from that helicopter on your school and your people are scattered all over the place, they just get confused. They're thinking, I don't know what this school is about. I don't know what their vision is. I don't know what their priorities are. I'm not really sure which values that they share. It's all a bit sporadic. It's a bit all over the place. And some of them might just have a gut instinct that this doesn't quite feel coherent. Others with a bit more business experience might be looking down and thinking, well, they need a strategy. They're all over the place. But regardless, they are less likely to choose your school to come and land in their helicopter in your valley, to extend the analogy, if they don't really know what you're about. That's what happens when you don't have a shared vision, you don't have a shared strategy. When you do have a shared strategy, what you need to do is work out together as a community. And this is all about togetherness. This is about the whole community. All of those 200 odd people in that valley with you that are your school community, they need to share the role of working out which mountaintop you want to climb. Now, that's not to say that you have to decide that, in our example, sport is better or worse or more important and less important than academic results, for example. What it is to say is that you need to craft a coherent set of priorities, of values, of a vision, of a mission as to what is most important. So you can have an element of sport and an element of academic potential, but you can't have an element of everything because it doesn't give anyone a coherent message about your priorities and what you think is really important. So what strategy is about, and when I run strategy development processes and I go into schools and I work through a series of workshops, working not only with senior leadership, but also through surveys and workshops with the rest of the staff and the decision makers at all levels across the school. And what we're trying to do is to forge a direction. We're trying to work out which mountaintop do you want to climb. And there is no right and wrong answer, but there will be some mountaintops that will be more suitable for your school, have more opportunity embedded within them. Once you have a whole community understanding what that vision is, that have contributed to and have been involved in developing that strategy, you will know which mountaintop you're heading to. You can then, as a set of school leaders and governors, use all of those other leadership tools to do with being inspirational, to do with setting out your vision, bringing people with you, encouraging people to take a proactive part in delivering that strategy. All of those leadership skills, they can be deployed in one direction to lead your school up the mountain that you have selected. And when you do that, all of those decisions align. All of those people start heading up the same mountain. Now, let's be realistic. There will still be one or two people heading up an entirely different mountain. Over time, they may feel less and less comfortable that they are in the right place and may decide to leave your school. But there may be staff members who just don't want to come along with you on this journey to this particular vision, this particular mountaintop. That's fine. It'll happen. But generally speaking, you want most people, almost everyone, to be heading together up a particular mountain. It also means that those families in those helicopters flying above will look down on your school and your team and think, I understand what they prioritise. I understand what they're about. And they're together. They're doing it together. Now, a few of those families may think, that's not for me, and that's fine. But you will be much more clearly communicating to those families, those prospective families, what your school is all about, and then delivering on those promises. And that's all about implementing the strategy. That's for another day. That's not for now. But it's about being clear and having clarity as a whole community what your vision is, what your values are, and which mountain you have decided you're going to climb together. Now, I realise that this might all sound a bit cheesy. That's fine. What I wanted to do this week was give you a completely different perspective, either because you yourself are not entirely convinced about strategy and about vision and its importance, or more likely, given you've sought out to listen to this episode, more likely you need to persuade some others around you who are pretty sceptical. Sometimes using this kind of storytelling visualization technique helps people to understand the purpose of strategy, and it strips away all the jargon and all of the analytical tools which are important, but if you haven't convinced them that strategy is important to start with, they're not going to listen to you waffling on about a particular strategic tool that you think you want to use with the next team building exercise. Hopefully this is of use. Now this week, I very much want to hear your feedback, because this is completely different to all the other things that I've covered in this podcast so far. I really want to hear what you think about it. Really want to hear whether you feel that this kind of storytelling approach might help some of your colleagues to kind of understand the purpose of strategy. I know that there are people that I've worked with who have used analogies like this, and I've used similar things in my workshops, and it has helped people to visualize and understand and cut through some of that skepticism around strategy. Let me know what you think. Have a strategic week, and I look forward to speaking to you next time. Bye-bye then. Thanks for listening to the Independent School Podcast, the podcast that helps senior leaders in private schools to think and act more strategically, both because they want to secure the future of their school and because they want to help build a more equal and just world. You can listen in everywhere that podcasts are available. And if you want to catch up on previous episodes or follow any of the links that I've mentioned today, just head over to www.consultjuliet.co.uk/podcast.